to Amplify, a podcast dedicated to accounting firm growth. I'm Katie Tolan, your host for this season, where we're diving into that business development role within accounting firms. In today's episode, we're looking at how business developers work with your marketing team. Joining me is Chris Perrino, Principal of Business Development at Barnes Dennig. Welcome, Chris.
I'm glad to be here, and thanks for asking me to join you on your podcast.
So, Chris, for those people who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about what you do and your role throughout your career?
Sure. I've been doing this for a little while, 25 years. So in those years, the role has evolved. When I got here, we were 40 people, and my role was a lot of marketing with some business development aspects to it, just to get things kind of built from a foundational standpoint. From there, it evolved into more of a business development role. Sometimes it was 50-50, sometimes it was 75-25, and it could go either way on any given week or day. But ultimately, my role now is and has been primarily been on the business development side, helping the partner group develop leads that they have, helping them make the most out of those leads, keeping them from skipping steps to try to be efficient, because business development just is not efficient. If you skip steps, you might as well not do the first few anyway. So we really work the process, and we think about the messaging to the prospect. We think about who the references should be. We think about some of the concepts that are out there, divide and conquer and things of that nature. So that's really been my role. It's part relationship, building relationship with prospects, and part building relationships internally so that I can help when there's a good prospect that comes up. I also work with our niche groups for them to get the most out of what they're doing, inject some accountability into the process as well. It's been a lot of fun. I also work with the marketing team. It's more of a peer level marketing director and I these days. And what we meet, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We do meet frequently to make sure that we both understand what I'm seeing from prospects and referral sources, and what the marketing team is seeing from the broader perspective. What are the best pages on the website, things like that. I've been having a great time in my role as I've become a seasoned veteran these days. It's been a lot of fun, and now we've gone from 40 employees when I got here to something around 170 these days. So it's kind of a neat thing to watch it grow over those years.
So what I love about you in this topic is you've dabbled in the marketing side, you've overseen the marketing as your career has evolved. So let's just set the record straight for those listeners. What's the difference between marketing and business development? If I'm a marketer, shouldn't they be doing business development? Or,
right.
Are there skills overlap, or are these two separate roles?
Early in my career, I had a hard time answering that, because people would say, how do we, breach this gap between marketing and business development? I'm saying, I don't know, because I live in that gap. But now it's a little more, discernible, and I've spoken on this in the past. But I think that there still is a fundamental truth to the idea that marketing is one to many, whether that means a website or a video or an e-blast or anything like that, or blog. It's more one to many type stuff. Whereas I think there still is some fundamental truth around the fact that business development tends to be more one to one. I'm talking to a referral source. I'm talking to a prospect, and that's a one-to-one type of thing. I think there's some truth in that, but yet there's so many fundamental differences from the old days, if you'll allow me to say that, in that marketing does so much more now and has a lot more technical aspects to their role. So you've got the SEO and the website stuff, and you're running drip campaigns, and you're seeing who's visiting our website. And there's webinars, and there's on-demand webinars, and there's blah, blah, blah. What did I miss? I'm sure I missed too many things. But there's so much of that, but yet still on the business development side, it's still fairly straightforward. Talking to referral sources, talking to prospects, talking to the partners to get them in front of those referral sources and prospects, and being the intermediary to a certain degree. So I think there is a fundamental difference, but yet there's still fundamental pieces within each that's unique and necessary. Ultimately, I think the overlap, though, between marketing and business development, overlap is in the sense that both business developers and marketers are looking outside the firm. They don't necessarily sweat realization and billable hours, and that's not their world. They're thinking about, what do clients want to know, what do prospects want to know right now, and so they're looking at the pages on the website that have the most hits, and they're looking at other things, like a new tax law coming down the pike. Many of the best marketers and business developers are trying to figure out what Congress currently have as a new tax law, or in states the same type of thing. So I think that's where the overlap is in that external focus, to see what's out there, and how to make sure that we're providing that kind of content, or is it an opportunity now for the business developer to go out and have this new weapon, this new idea to quote unquote sell to a prospect. So I think that's where the overlap is, and yet there are fundamental differences that still exist and need to exist. The roles are different.
So the one thing that you talked about that really resonated with me is how marketing has evolved. You had seen it, and I think what happens today is marketing is being asked to actually develop leads and being held accountable to that at a much higher level. So once a marketing develops the lead based on your definition, it hits a one-on-one scenario, and I'm no longer the one as a marketer responsible for it. So how does that get passed off to sales? Like, what does that look like? Does marketing ever stay involved? Do we just give it to a Chris and say, run with it? What does that look like?
Yeah, it depends, that old answer, but it depends on size of firm and the seniority or experience level of your marketing team versus your business development team. But ultimately, I think marketing should stay involved. Generally, if marketing can drag the lead to the door, and the concept of business development dragging the lead into the firm as a client, so that's kind of a quick and dirty. But I think that there's still a role for marketing once the lead gets rolling, and I think part of that role is ultimately being a resource, providing the right materials. Oh, you're going out to see a manufacturer? Well, we just completed a manufacturing study on this, that, or the other thing. Or next week we have a webinar on manufacturing. So it's being that resource and reminding them. Most business developers would know that, but nevertheless, it's just good to be that. But then the business development side, their job still is to be face to face, but then they need to report that back to marketing and put that in that plan, do, study, act cycle. So okay, so this prospect said this about the research and development tax credit or the employee retention tax credit. How do we fine tune our materials to reflect that down the road? Is that a trend, or is that a one-off? So there's that, when the business development and marketing team interface, they can refine the stuff that marketing's putting out there, blogs, videos, etc. What should SEO be tuned up to focus on? So there's that communication. But I think that there probably are some marketers who do the face-to-face stuff, especially maybe in smaller firms, or those who have the skill set. There's others, and I've worked with them, who said, I have no interest in going out there and sitting with a prospect. What would I say? I don't know enough about the topic of the day. And so, I think there's still that difference, but ultimately I think marketing can stay involved. Marketing can even stay involved by maybe being in a debrief meeting after a meeting with the prospect. Then you'd have the partners, maybe the business developer, get marketing involved, especially if they're going to work on the wonderful proposal, the P word, as I like to call it, because it's really important for marketing to do that for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is it allows the business developer to stay client facing, and that's so important. Marketing can also do the research. So we got this lead, and here's 10 things I found out about them. They can find that research and maybe they provide one of these industry reports. There's IBIS World, and there's IQ, Vertical IQ, and it used to be First Research. I think they might have merged with somebody, but I'm not sure. Nevertheless, those exist. They're not horribly expensive, and you can get those reports on an industry if somebody's not familiar with it, and that helps their business developer. Go to the 5500 website. For the DOL, Department of Labor has a website that you can download the 5500 for virtually any company in the US, and you can see how big they are. You can get an employee count. You can, if they're over 120 or whatever, and they're getting their plan audited, you can see who the accountant is. All good info, etc. So those are some of the things that how marketing can stay involved until the close, and that proposal is so important. And if if marketing's at that debrief meeting, they can bring up ideas. They can think about curating that proposal so that the first draft is really good stuff. That first draft, the business developer says, yeah, okay, you guys, you hit it. Maybe add this or add that or take that out. Or that's wonderful when that first draft for a proposal is so close to being ready to go. That's going to help the business developer. It's going to help the partners, et cetera.
I love the fact that basically you're saying they make each other's jobs more effective. Everybody thinks like,
Absolutely.
hey, marketers, you should be able to just go do something. Well, we're better as marketers if we understand what the buyers are looking for and saying and
Right.
asking.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
business developers have this knowledge because they're having those one-on-one conversations. We can adapt that. And then each person, BD and marketing, is making the other one more successful and more efficient. When we share that information, marketing can do a better job giving you tools. And marketers, if we understand what's being said in the marketplace and what prospects and clients want, we can actually produce better materials to generate more leads in the future.
Right.
It's a great win-win situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about making each other more effective and better, and ultimately kind of making each other's jobs easier. There's that critical mass, there's that 2+2=5 thing. I love that concept.
I think in too many firms, you actually see the opposite, where marketing and BD are in silos. You got your BD, especially sometimes you get to the larger firms, you got your BD team, your separate marketing team, and
Yeah.
they're not connecting. I mean, you gave us all these great reasons, but why is this a mistake? And why should any firm that's listening or any BD or marketer that doesn't have that relationship, why should they look at playing nicer with one
Yeah.
another?
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody who's been around uh, public accounting for a while has run into a client who says, why do I have to answer the same questions for the audit team that I have to answer for the tax team? Why do I have to send the same materials to the audit team that I have to send to the tax team? I don't understand how they're, why are you guys in silos? So the reason why business development and marketing shouldn't be in silos is the same as why tax and audit shouldn't be in silos with respect to client communication. It's because that kind of disconnect um, um, it frustrates the clients. It frustrates them, and then they're doing double work. Why are you asking me for that? I just sent it to the audit team last week, or vice versa. So I think that's a huge part of it. So if marketing and business development can get out of their silos and make sure that they're communicating, they can have prospects who get the same message from the website or from a blog post that they're getting from the business development executive. and with that regard, I think if we don't have those communications, all we're doing is confusing the prospect. Well, Chris came to me and he talked about the employee retention tax credit. I can't find a thing about that on the website, or what he said is wrong, is different than what their website says. I don't understand this, because you're going to get checked out either on the front end or the back end if you're a business developer. If you get in a meeting with somebody that don't know you well, they're going to check you out. If they had a good meeting with you, they're going to go look at your website and check out the firm. I mean, they're just tire kickers. It is what it is. So, I think that's the biggest thing, that the messaging has to be honed and consistent between marketing and business development. The roles are different. Yes, got it. But if the messaging is different, you're going to confuse the prospects. In fact, you're going to make them say, I don't think this is the firm for me, because there's this disconnect. I don't get it. Either there's just some weird thing that inhibits the ability to build trust. So I think that's a big part of it. So ultimately, if they're not collaborating, they being business development and marketing, if they're not collaborating, they're wasting the potential of those two departments. As I said earlier, 2+2=5. If you really collaborate, maybe it can equal 7. Let's get a critical mass here. Let's get more out of it than we put into it. That's a beautiful thing about it. We're wasting potential. We're wasting firm resources when business development and marketing aren't working together, in my opinion.
But and when you said that, I actually thought this applies to the partner selling as well. They're
Yeah.
being checked out as well. And if there's not consistent messaging between the website and what they're saying, that's going
Yeah.
to hurt. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's selling in the firm, whether it's a professional salesperson or not, they
Right.
need to be lockstep with marketing so that we're
Yeah.
going to market with the same
Yeah.
messaging.
Prime example would be, we have partners that have a specialization in construction, manufacturing, name a niche. But if we're putting out a proposal to something beyond that, because we don't have a fast food niche, or what do they call it, quick service restaurant niche, but we have clients in that industry, so we know it to as much as we need to. we can talk about that on a different day. But the point is that I'll read a proposal first draft and it says, Ed is one of our experts in our construction industry, and he says this is bio in the profile in our proposal. I'm like, yeah, he's not today. He's somebody who has all these other skills that are complementary to a quick service restaurant, but he's not necessarily a construction expert. So, we have to watch those little messaging, disconnects as well.
Okay. So you were lucky in your career that you actually worked closely with marketing and oversaw them. I don't know if a lot of business developers have that experience, especially that firsthand experience. So,
Yeah.
from your perspective, what should a salesperson actually know about what marketing's doing, and maybe where they could tie in?
Yeah. The easy answer is they should know everything relevant, everything, as our accounting friends would say, everything material. But everything, a BDE needs to know what marketing is emphasizing. Right now in our firm, we're emphasizing a nonprofit compensation and benefits study that's currently underway and wraps up on September 8th. So, that's what marketing's emphasizing. I know that because, I'm still very plugged in. But they also need to know the other side of it. And I've mentioned this, what is business development hearing about when they're out talking to prospective clients? What are they hearing on the street? What are the issues? Labor. That's what we hear that all the time. When I'm out and I'm talking to a client, or generally a prospect, it's about labor. I can't find somebody to fill this position. When I hire for my manufacturing plant, the entry level positions, all they do is churn. I have 100% churn, like a fast food restaurant on my bottom entry level position. So I bring that back to the business to the marketing team. Here's what they're worried about, and we don't offer HR services, but we still have some measure of empathy for that, and we have to make sure that we reflect that in our messaging. So I think the business developer can bring the marketplace to the marketer. The marketer can bring to the business developer other things. What are they emphasizing? But also, a key thing to know is, what are the top pages on the website that are getting hits? We need, as a business developer, we need to know that. What are these, what pages are getting the most hits? What blogs are getting the most hits of our on-demand content? Like we do a number of webinars and we always record them, at least post-COVID we do. And so we have that on demand on our website. Which of those is getting the most hits after the fact? Really important issues like that, I think. Which blogs are getting the most hits? What is the SEO revved up to bring into the firm these days? You can only emphasize so many things, I think. I'm not an SEO expert, but what are we emphasizing there with our SEO experts? So I think that's another part of it. Also, it's helpful for the business developer, especially in the larger firms. It's not a problem here. Which banks, which law firms are we sponsoring events with? Also nice to know which banks and law firms are co-sponsoring events or research with our competitors. Those are kind of interesting thoughts to consider. So it really is, it's everything. And it's vice versa. Marketing needs to know everything the business developer is hearing and seeing and emphasizing, and vice versa. So that's, and you have to be a good communicator so you don't tell them everything that's irrelevant. It's everything that's material, as our accounting friends would say.
Yeah, I love the material component. So, if we look at what does a business developer need from marketing to be successful, I think you already gave us a couple things. Like, if you don't know what the top things are on the website and the blog and on-demand content or whatever it is, sit down and ask. If you don't know, who do we have relationships with? Who have we had networking events with? What do we have scheduled out? Go ask. But what else could a marketer do for someone like you, Chris, to make them more successful?
I think the number one thing, and this has a lot of tentacles and a lot of ways it can be implemented. The number one thing is to help the business developer stay market facing. Keep them out of the office. If that means helping them with CRM updates, so be it. But keep that business developer or the business development team market facing with prospects, referral sources. In some cases, I know some firms have them calling on clients. Great. But find a way to not get them bogged down in schlepping stuff to an event or cleaning up after the event. Those are, there's a lot of other things. An example would be back to what I said earlier. when marketing drafts a proposal, and God love them for doing it, and I still review many of them myself, make that first draft a second or third draft. Think for the business developer, think for the client, or excuse me, the partner, and say, okay, this bio is a quick service. This is a quick service restaurant client, to go back to my earlier example. I got to refine this person's bio so it doesn't say that they're a construction expert. It's a clunker if you're in the choir. It's the person singing off key. That's what it is. So that's another way to do it. That's a quick example. In another example would be to provide curated research. So if I did research on a larger company, a larger middle market company, almost any company over 100 employees is going to have a decent amount of stuff out there to read. There's the industry report, like from Vertical IQ or IBIS. There's probably an occasional news article, and if dating back maybe 10, 15 years, how much of that is relevant though? I can work up volumes of stuff. You can go on, like I said, the DOL's 5500 site, curate that stuff for the partner and the business developer, so that they're not having to wade through 10 pages, 20 pages, 100 pages. Find a way to see if you can say, this article's from 2005. It doesn't make sense anymore. I'm not even going to send them that one and bog them down. So that would be another one. But ultimately, find a way to keep them out of the office. But keep them informed also about the events that are coming up. And I'm talking about perfect world stuff here. What you asked, so we can talk on perfect world. I think it's helpful. What events are coming up? What are we co-sponsoring? Whether it's, there's a gala at the XYZ nonprofit client, we have a table. Can you go? Can you get some people to go? Those kinds of things are helpful as well.
Okay, so how did you go about building relationships with your marketers? As you were talking about this, I'm like, if that relationship doesn't exist, how could we what could we do there? Or what could a business developer or marketer do if they feel like they don't have that kind of relationship to do those kind of asks in the conversation that you've talked about?
That's a good question. And I think that ultimately it comes down to the two-way street. But I think getting together frequently helps. Maybe the first few meetings won't be, as beneficial as the ones thereafter. But in our world, we meet once or twice a week. We have a standing meeting, myself and the marketing director, and we talk about what's going on. And through that, we're able to talk about what I'm hearing, or what my concern of the day is, or what's going on. That's something I need that maybe that person can then help me accelerate through the marketing, project list. It's like a to-do list from hell. So those are some of the things, but it's just basic communication. And by having it scheduled, we schedule ours on Tuesday and Thursday, and we generally have them. Sometimes they'll say, I don't have anything, let's meet next week or whatever. But that's what helps us immeasurably, is to have that where you're talking about what you're doing, what you're seeing, an update on what we talked about at the last meeting. We can ask questions of each other. We just build a great working relationship that way.
I love the fact that's recurring meetings, because otherwise, if you just pop your head in when you need something, you're missing all of that other cool connection that could happen.
Yeah, to drive by, mess at that point. I think the key to this relationship is time, and meaning there's something scheduled and we do this frequently. It's part of our weekly cadence, and transparency. This person needs to know everything. Again, not everything in the sense of down to what you had for lunch with the banker, but everything in the sense, again, back to materiality, everything that's material for them to do their job and to the firm going forward.
So we've been talking a lot about, what this could look like and that ideal situation, but for people that need a little more example, do you have a scenario that you could share with us, how you felt like you and marketing just knocked it out of the park working well together on something?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, we're currently working on a nonprofit compensation and benefits study. That's where there's clear lines of responsibility on that project. It's a pretty big project. The lift is heavier on the marketing team. They're working to get sponsors first and foremost. Sometimes I'll help with that. Then once the sponsors say, yeah, we'd love to be your co-sponsor on that, the marketing team refines, creates, and coordinates the questionnaire. We do this every other year, so there is an existing questionnaire, but if it was new, they'd have to come up with the questions. I'm happy to help with that. But if they can get it, again, back to this really good first draft, that's a great way to do that. But they also work with a software vendor, or if we use someone with special software for research studies, you can use SurveyMonkey, of course, but marketing is going to do that ultimately. Then there's an event afterwards. They organize that. They put together the invitations. They get a guest speaker to do a keynote beyond, the content of the report, and they get to create the deliverable, the end report. And this thing's 50 pages generally, and it's pie charts and it's bar charts and it's narrative and blah blah blah. So those are all really important roles for the overall project, and marketing does that. On the other side, there's some cajoling, arm twisting, and if you will, recruiting that has to go on to get the participation in the event, in the study, to happen. So business development, me in this case, I talk to the clients, or I'll work with the partners to talk to the clients, and then I try to cast a wide net with personal calls and emails to prospects, asking them to participate in the study, and then hopefully we can get a good response there. Those who do participate, those who don't, that I was in contact with, then I invite them to the event. We're going to unveil the results. So, and then afterwards, I'll do some one-on-one meetings with select prospects, the ones I want to talk to, and we'll talk about what came out in the study, what was revealed, what are the highlights, what are other people thinking about, the findings of the study. So there's the two roles fairly clearly delineated, and it works out great. And thankfully we've done it for a number of years, but that's how we delineate the roles on that specific project, as an example on how marketing and business development can work together going forward.
And you've actually generated conversation, interest, leads with prospects as a result of this coordinated effort.
Absolutely, and clients. It's on the not-for-profit world. You'll see your RFP count go up in the future from those ones who are new to your survey, who were kind of recruited. It's a soft, what we call puppy dog close. Hi, I'm not calling you to get on your RFP list today. I'm calling you so you'll participate in our compensation benefit study for good info that'll help your company. So you just build that relationship with an easy first step.
And I think that's great, because that shows that it's worth the business developer's investment in time in a project like this, because it actually does pay out in a way that's incredibly beneficial to that business developer.
Absolutely.
So marketers have done a much better job, I'm going to say in the past decade, of actually developing web leads. There's some organizations that are spitting out high numbers.
Yes.
Do business developers step in and help? And, what is their role in, generating the lead, qualifying the lead, whatever that might look like?
Yeah. I think the business developer role is both those things. But there's also another part of it, and that is refining what we're putting on the website so that we are being topical and if, as much as possible, up to date with respect to messaging about the employee retention tax credit, or those kinds of things, those things that tend to generate a little higher lead flow. So I think the business developer can, again, reflect back what he or she is hearing in the marketplace about the topics of the day, the problems of the today. Now, I mentioned labor, huge one, but there's other things that are out there. Another one is inflation, salary inflation. That kind of gets back to later, but raw material pricing, inventory, obsolescence, things like that. So let's make sure we're touching on those topics as well, because those come up fairly frequently, especially in a high inflationary time in our history era, if you will. What does that do to LIFO and FIFO stuff and LIFO pools and all that? I've just exhausted everything I know about LIFO, but the point is I know that I can bring that back to our marketing team and say, this person over here, Mary, is really an expert on LIFO. Let's get that person to write a blog, because I think it'll help us with our other efforts to, attract people to our content on the website. And then ultimately, the other side of it is that qualification of the lead, sifting the leads. And, I can help with that, and I do help with that. So that, we have a defined ideal client profile. We really want to be 75 employees and up, or whatever the number is. We really want to be 50 million and up, whatever the numbers are. So if you have that, then you can, and the marketing team knows that too, they can see this lead, and it's like, and we even ask now for company size, or we'll get inquiries because we have an international team for small for individuals, people with 1040 problems. The international tax world for individuals is a nightmare. but we can't solve the nightmare for them, or that's all we do all day. So we have people we send them to. So marketing can help, knowing this isn't going to work because it's a 1040 client from someone who has some kind of weird international nexus that they are worried about on their tax return. We just can't do that in an area, in an era when labor is our hardest problem too. So marketing knows I send that to this group, or I'll reply to this person and say, contact XYZ firm because they have a practice that does that. So those are some of the ways that we can get involved and kind of help sift out those leads, the wheat from the chaff, to quote a phrase.
Well, and that's what I love about it, because I think if you do hear a downside of this, it's like, well, the leads aren't qualified. Well, by
Yeah,
working with you, you could give us some pre-qualification questions. Like you said,
yeah,
company size is one that you ask now, to help weed it down a little bit so that we're not sending you or a partner or whoever's following up on a lead anything
right.
that we
Yeah,
have done some whittling down to make sure it's closer to ideal.
yeah. I like to think of the lead funnel having an escape hatch somewhere, maybe the top or the middle, and we just say that doesn't fit. It goes out, and then we aren't just saying we blow it off, we never follow up with those folks, but rather we send them somewhere else. All of our partners in all of our markets have called friends who are in smaller firms, or they're in a onesie twosie kind of firm, and we create a list, and we know that those people will look at 1040s and other things, and we'll send this. So this person has an inquiry. I need a new 1040 whatever, prep firm, and it ain't gonna be us. So we have the escape hatch, and we have a list, and we'll email that person and say, these 10 firms in our market are currently, last we heard, are currently taking on 1040 clients. We aren't able to, and we apologize for that. Please contact them. So that helps a lot to have those systems and processes in place for the ones that just don't make sense. Get them out of the funnel. Don't bog our people down. Don't bog the business development team down.
I love the escape hatch. I might be stealing that one and using it, because there's a lot of leads you want to push out that escape hatch.
I'm sure I've stolen it from somebody else.
So I suspect people listening are like, maybe even a bit jealous. Like, wow, I don't have that relationship with my BD, or if it's a BD, I don't have that kind of relationship with marketing, or maybe it's even a partner sitting back going, I don't think my marketing and BD works that way.
Mhm.
What advice would you have with them to actually strengthen that relationship and to build the kind of relationship you're talking about?
Yeah. It's back to that time and transparency thing. And I could see a scenario there where, for whatever reason, somebody on either side of that, probably the business developer, has some ego issues. And then I think it's time for the managing partner to say, here's a metric and that you guys need to hit. And it's that you have, 40 meetings a year, and they're at least a half hour, and you both come up with a report, and these things are on the report. And I think it's the managing partner can help facilitate that. If there's some kind of a personality conflict, God forbid, I've never had that, and I'm not saying I do, but if it was there, it's up to the whoever it might be, partner in charge of marketing. You get the idea, to create a framework for those folks to make sure that they're communicating. Another thing that's important, I personally, I kind of started doing this soon after I got here, because I saw that I wasn't having the kind of day-to-day conversations with the partner in charge of marketing that I had in a previous life, where I worked with a sales team. I was the sales director, and I worked closely with the owner of the company because we were 30 people, and he didn't have a billable hour goal. And I had great people that I reported to over the years, but it wasn't day to day. I started doing a monthly report. I called it my justification for existence. And so I was starting to put that together, and I think many people do those now. And so our marketing team puts together a monthly report. I put together a monthly report on the biz dev side. And so I read the marketing report faithfully every month. That could be, that's another important way to do it. And then it also presents an agenda for the next few meetings. I saw that this page view was up. Why do you think that is, or stuff like that? I'm not hearing that that's an issue out in the market. So those kinds of things can help facilitate as well.
Well, great. I love this. And I think, as we look at this, marketing and BD working together. I mean, you probably said it best early on when you said marketing drags them to the door, and then, BD drags them into the firm. So that's why we need to be working together. So I appreciate your time today, Chris. I think this was incredibly valuable, with lots of insight for our listeners.
Glad to help out, and thanks for asking me to be here today.
This is another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. A big thanks to everyone out there who was listening in today. If you like what you heard, please review us on the podcast platform you're listening to now. And be sure to listen to other episodes in this business development season. You can learn more about Amplify on the Association for Accounting Marketing website at accountingmarketing.org. The podcast is found under publications. If you want to learn more about me, reach out to me on LinkedIn at Katie Tolan. That's Katie with an IE and Tolan, Tolin. Thanks again, and we look forward to having you join us on another episode again